The challenges continue to mount at the White House tonight with a new set of poll numbers showing the American people are losing confidence in the Biden administration's ability to handle numerous issues that those voters rate as the most important ones to their lives. So let's bring in tonight's Dream Team panel. Former Biden campaign surrogate Kevin Walling and the co-chair of Project 21, Horace Cooper. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Hey, Shannon, happy Monday.
Good evening. Merry Christmas.
And to you, too. Merry Christmas. It's almost here, right? It feels like it. Okay, so let's talk about some of what's going on with the president. ABC News reporting Sunday its poll results along with Ipsos. It says President Biden's job approval sinking on inflation, crime, and COVID. It says President Biden is facing significant skepticism from the American public, with his job approval rating lagging across a range of major issues, including new lows for his handling of crime, gun violence, and the economic recovery. Kevin, what does the White House do with that?
Well, certainly the White House has its hands full across all these issues that you highlight. But listen, the White House is taking tangible steps. President Biden is taking tangible steps to tackle all of these issues. We're still pushing so hard on the vaccination front, vaccinating between 1 and 2 million Americans every day, including boosters, which is a good sign. That's the surest way we come out of this pandemic. And I think a lot of that polling is reflective of just how frustrated the American people are. But on the crime factor, too, you see $140 million announced just last month by the Department of Justice to hire 1,000 more cops on the streets to assist a lot of these local jurisdictions that are going through and facing a lot of these smash and grabs and homicides and assaults. So this administration is working tangibly, knowing just how bad the optics are out there and actually proposing some real solutions. And hopefully some Republicans will come along with some of those solutions that the president is pushing for.
Okay, so let's delve into these a little bit deeper. I want to put up a map that shows some of the crime issues. These are 12 cities that have already broken their homicide records this year. And some of them, I mean, they've blown past them. But it's not just that, because we know from the polling that we cited there with ABC Ipsos, 69% say they disapprove of how the president is handling inflation. More than half, 57% say they disapprove of how he's handling the economic recovery. Horace.
Well, all three of these problems reflect a fundamental failure, and that is that our president and this administration do not believe that we Americans are capable of governing ourselves. He doesn't persuade us to take the vaccine, he mandates it. He doesn't say that we're going to hold accountable those individuals that prey on the least of us. He says that we've got to make sure that there's equity. We've got to make sure that we're being fair to people, because he knows better than we do. And Build Back Better, or as I refer to it, building back bad, just takes terrible ideas that have never worked, that are costly and are harming the economy, and are premised on the idea Washington, D.C. knows better than you. These ideas don't work, and the American people are rejecting them.
Well, it matters whether Senator Manchin rejects them, because that's the one guy that's got to be convinced at this point, and we know his conversations are ongoing with the White House about the BBB. However you decide to define those Bs. Okay, I want to talk about this because you mentioned this, Horace, this idea of the vaccine mandates. At the federal level, they've had a really rough time. The president has not had much luck on that. But the state level's been different. And today, the Supreme Court had a ruling, well, a non-ruling ruling, because they didn't get involved with these doctors and nurses out of New York who said that they had a religious objection to the vaccine mandate for healthcare workers. The New York Times writing on this says the Supreme Court on Monday refused to block New York's requirement that healthcare workers be vaccinated against the coronavirus, even when they cite religious objections. Justice Neil Gorsuch filed a 14-page dissent saying that the majority had betrayed the court's commitment to religious liberty. He was joined by Justice Alito on that. Justice Thomas had his own dissent in which he did not write a lengthy explanation. But Kevin, you know, Justice Gorsuch said there's going to come a point where we have to remember that the Constitution and the basic protections there can't be violated just forever because we've got a crisis of some kind.
Yeah, Shannon, and I've been following your reporting on this, and I think it follows a similar decision we saw out of Maine just a few months ago, a 6-3 decision ruling on the religious grounds. And of course, it's important to talk about these implications across the country. But, you know, I take, for example, what we've seen with the active duty military, 1.3 million members of our active duty military, 97% of them are fully vaccinated as of today. So I think when it becomes a national security issue, when it becomes an issue for our healthcare workers that are interacting very closely with sick patients, the elderly, the infirmed, sick children, that there is a mandate that should follow. Now, obviously, you have something like the Catholic Bishops' Conference. I'm a Catholic, and they're fully supportive of both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine and stand against any of these kind of positions with regards to religious liberty. The Bishops' Conference has actually endorsed 2 of the leading vaccines that are out there in this country because they know it's good public health sense, not just for Catholics, but for Americans across the board.
Horace, I think for a lot of people, whether they're military, healthcare workers, truck drivers, whatever it is that they have a concern about, is that this administration, unlike many European countries, will not entertain the conversation about natural immunity. Millions of Americans have had COVID, and it's easy to test your antibodies, and they're free to do that. But this administration and many of these state and city mandates will not even entertain that part of the conversation.
Well, certainly the natural immunity issue is one of the reasons the American people aren't being persuaded to voluntarily go along. Here's a prediction. When I taught constitutional law and we focused on the First Amendment, particularly religious liberty, I explained that ultimately, and if you look at the line of cases, what you see is that the court, sometimes even begrudgingly, says that this American society must accommodate to the freedom of religion and liberty expressions associated with those. And that means things like the draft. We say that we're going to draft you, but if you say that you're a pacifist and motivated by faith, you are exempt. So even in the national security context, in the classroom, in the workplace, even if you are a federal government employee, I look at today's ruling and the earlier one in Maine and say that these were emergency appeals. But when these cases percolate, and if the mandate topic and COVID are still around in over a year or so, these are going to rise up through the circuits, and precedent is going to apply. And I believe ultimately the court is going to rule that it has been unfair, unconstitutional, and unlawful for government not to provide that religious accommodation.
Well, whether it's that on some other grounds or on some other grounds with mandates, it will be interesting to see, because I think the court is going to have to pick it up at some point, and we'll see what they do. Kevin and Horace, thank you for your time.
And thank God we have you, Shannon, to break it all down.
I will be following it. You got it, gentlemen.